Hey guys, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Science. Today we are going to be building up what we learned last week about animal cells, because today we're going to be learning about plant cells. Okay, so this is your plant cell. Ooh, lovely. And we've got 6 labels on there, and I'd like you to just hit pause and just have a go at labelling them. Don't worry if you don't know any of them, because we're going to go through all of them in just a second. Right, so I'm assuming that you hit pause there, because if you didn't, I will come and find you and teach you about plant cells. No, seriously, I have no way of doing that. Anyway, so give yourself a tick if you got nucleus. And give yourself a tick if you got cell membrane. Give yourself another tick if you got the cell wall. And give yourself a tick if you got the vacuole. And another one if you got the chloroplasts. And give yourself another tick if you got the mitochondria. Come on. Now, there's one thing I've missed off here, and I did it intentionally because some of you will be shouting it at the screen right now. Do you know what I've missed out of here if you think back to animal cells? Begins with C. Cytoplasm. So if you were shouting that at the screen just now, give yourself an extra tick. Way! Woo! Now I've done a couple of these in a different colour. So why would I have done these 3 in a different colour to all these others? Well, if you watched the animal cells video that I've also put up, you will know that cell membrane, mitochondria, nucleus and cytoplasm are all in animal cells as well as plant cells. Wow. So that means that the chloroplast, cell wall and vacuole are all only uniquely found in plant cells out of possible plant cells or animal cells. There are some other cells that you might find some of these in, but we're not doing those just yet. So you should be able to define these 4 really easily if you remember it from animal cells. So have a go at doing that, and I'm going to write some brief sentences under each of these, and then I'm going to cut the video so that you don't have to wait for me to finish writing it. Okay, we're back. Are you ready for this? Anyway, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit on some of these features, and then we'll look at some of the others in a moment. So we've got the cytoplasm, which controls the chemical reactions. We have got the nucleus, which controls the cell. We've got the cell membrane, which controls access to the cell. And the mitochondria, where respiration happens. So these are the 4 things that we already knew about from the animal cells. So now let's look at the 3 here, which we need to get as well in order to have a plant cell. Dun dun dun. The vacuole is this large area here in the middle of the cell that appears to be empty. It's actually filled with sugary water and kind of works to hold the cell outwards in the same way that if you had a cardboard box and filled it with a balloon filled with water, the balloon would push the rest of the cardboard box outwards and make the whole structure stronger. If the plant cell is dehydrated, the vacuole starts to do this. At which point all of this part of the cell would come in on itself and the whole thing would be what we call flaccid. If this happens for too long, plants tend to die. Dun dun dun. So let's just reinflate that again, because we don't want our plant cell to die before we've finished revising for our GCSE plant cells. Okay, so the vacuole maintains the plant's structure. Let me just write that in for you. What about the chloroplasts? The chloroplasts are full of chlorophyll, and that's where photosynthesis happens. So the chloroplasts are where photosynthesis happens in the chlorophyll. Here be photosynthesis, yar! So the next thing we need to talk about then is this cell wall. We really need to talk about our cell wall next. The last thing on here. Now, there's a bit of a kind of confusion that a lot of people have. Why, when there's a cell membrane, which is perfectly good for animal cells, do plant cells feel the need to also have a cell wall? Now, the reason for this is basically the same as if you had a garden. Some gardens have a hedge around the outside of them. Some gardens also have a wall around the outside of them. Have you ever seen a garden with a hedge and a wall? That's kind of what these two are like. So if you've got a hedge around your garden, then cats can get in and out through the bottom of the hedge quite easily. If you happened to have some pet birds, let's say, living in your garden in an aviary, and you didn't want cats getting into your garden, you could build a wall around the hedge, and then the cats wouldn't be able to get through unless they climbed over the top. But that's why this is an analogy, not exactly the same as. So the cell wall basically maintains the structure of the cell. I don't think that's the best way of putting this. So in short, the cell wall is kind of an extra structural barrier around the outside of a plant cell that animal cells don't need, because animals can move out of the way of things, for example feet that are going to stand on them, or things pushing them out the way, or anything hitting them. You can move out the way because you can move. Plants can't move very well. They certainly can't get up and run out of the way, for example, of a football hitting them or fire or something. So they have a cell wall to try and protect them as best they can, but it's not perfect. Just like the cat can jump over the garden wall, things can and do still get past the cell wall, but it's the best they can do. And in order to reduce confusion, I am going to change this, and I'm going to change it to say shape instead of structure, because then we're not going to get confused between the vacuole and the cell wall. So the vacuole kind of pushes outwards to keep the plant's shape, and the cell wall, which is kind of another word for structure, but we're using it in a slightly different meaning, to cell wall, which protects the overall structure of the plant. I hope that makes sense. That's everything that you need to know about plant cells for your GCSE in science, and I hope you found this helpful. If you're still confused about anything to do with plant cells or animal cells, let me know in the comments below the relevant video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked what you saw and would like some more learning and science-based videos. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week with specialised cells. Woo!